Welcome to the Netivot Shalom Shir. Parsha Lech Lecha, that's our Parsha this week. And in this Parsha, we have some of the major tests that God made Avraham Avinu go through, including leaving his family, country land, all the surroundings, including going through a period of infertility, including the Akedat Yitzchak. And what do we learn from this? And Netivot Shalom is going to talk about all this. And basically, he's going to come to the conclusion that the way that Avraham Avinu withstood and successfully passed these tests was because of his love for God. Because of his love for God, everything that he did concerned, is this something that God would like to see happen? The Ratzon Hashem. That's the bottom line that the Netivot Shalom is gonna get through. So you could say, well, if that's it, I could turn off now. I don't have to watch anymore. But I think you'll find it interesting how he evolves to that point. So let's begin. You all have it on your screen, hopefully. Leinatcha latovatcha. Vayom Hashem el Avram, Lech lecha mi'aretzecha v'ladecha beis avicha el haaretz asher erecha. Go. God said to Avram, go from the land of your birthplace, your native land, your father's house, go to the land that I will show you. And he didn't tell him where he was going to go. I mean, that's a fantastic element of Amunah right there, Bitachon. He's ready to go without Hashem saying, I want you to go to this place. But Rashi writes, Lech lecha lahanascha tavascha. Go for yourself and your benefit. Shalides kiyum bo ve'escha lagoy gadol. Because by fulfilling this command to go from your land, to follow God's command, then it will come to pass the blessing of his descendants becoming a great nation and being blessed and making the name of his descendants great and a blessing for all mankind. And the Meforshim asks, we know the quality of Avraham Avinu was chesed and ahava, love for everybody. We've talked about it many times, how important that is, love for everybody. V'akasav karo Avram Ohavai, and the pasuk refers to him as Avram, my beloved. Uvadai shekol avodos l'Hashem Yisborach hoi b'si ahava shelo al menash l'kabel schor. Certainly, everything that Hashem did for God, all the mitzvahs that he did, was only because of his love for God, and not for any concern about receiving any reward for it. So why does Rashi have to say this was for his benefit and for his good? It makes no difference to Avraham Avinu. He doesn't care if it's for his good or if it's not for his good. That's not his criteria. This also is difficult to understand how this going out of his house, his father's house, his country, etc., how that is one of the 10 tests that Avraham Avinu went through. After God has promised such rewards for doing this, what kind of a test is that? This is what's going to happen if you do this. Well, wow, hell, anybody would do it. All right, so what kind of a test is that? Another question is, it's not such a unique thing that only Avraham Avinu was able to do this. Any human being, given that same choice, given the same panoply of rewards, would be happy to leave. I mean, people right today, they moved from cities and states in the hunt, to hunt for a job, to get a different job. Here, they're promised riches. Who wouldn't go? The Rambam says, but say for Amunah B'tochon, in his book on Amunah and B'tochon, he says, Al Tachshov ki malaso shel Avinu ha'is gedolos kol kach lifnei hamokim mitzad shekaimus kol Torah. Don't think that the greatness of Avraham Avinu before God was the fact that he was fulfilling the entire Torah. Kol kach lifnei hamokim mitzad shekaimus kol Torah shekvar hayu b'Yisrael ki'ilu shekaimus kol Torah. Certainly, there have been other people in the nation of Israel who fulfilled the whole Torah. Avraham Avinu wasn't alone in that. But what was different about him? It says Abachibaso Haisa Livnei Hamakom. His love before God, Fish Amur Basronas, or the Shonos, as he was able to withstand these 10 tests because of his love for God. Shebe'emes, truth, yesh lahavim b'dvarav sharei mevin asar asyonos, yesh gam ken harbem Yisrael shamim b'shelos kelu. In truth, the Netivot Shalom says, there are probably many people you can find, many Jews you can find that could withstand these tests. Ach, befrat tzorech bir, but we have to look specifically. But it's and this test, shel lech lecha mi'artzecha, of going out from your land, shevtichu HaKadosh Baruch Hu schar ko gadol shitavimo. God promised such great reward. It will be good for him. Again, the same question. With the prospect of getting that kind of reward, what kind of a test is this? It's not such a great test. And even this is the second test after the first test when he was thrown into the fiery furnace in Ur Kasdim. Now it also seems that this test of leaving one's surroundings is greater than the first test of being thrown into a fire. So here we have to look at what the Ran says in his commentaries on the Akedah, the binding of Isaac on the Mizbeach. Shikar Esvainu b'kach shomer lo Kadosh Baruch Hu kach na es bidcha es chidecha. The main part of this test was when God said to Abraham, please take this knife. Please take this son, your only son, the son you love. He used the word na, which is a request. It's not a commandment. He didn't command them, but he says, please take your son. Ein na el Hashem bakash. This is only a request. He's not commanded on this. El mavakesh ani mincha. God says, it's like God says to him, I'm asking from you. In bertzonach alasos nachas ruach lefanei. If you feel like you should you should give me a great pleasure. Hallelujah. Then that desire will rise higher and higher. But if you don't do it, it's not something I'm commanding you to do it. So if you don't do it, you haven't been over, you haven't violated anything at all. If this was a command, many of Bnei Yisrael would have been jumping at the opportunity to fulfill this mitzvah. The greater question of this test was that it wasn't on the aspect of being commanded to do something. He had the opportunity not to fulfill this mitzvah. He had good reason. He could have said no. And it was just a request. It wasn't a command. But he could certainly have argued with God, you after being barren all these years, you gave me a child in my old age. Now you want to take him from me? I don't think so. He could have done that, but he didn't. Everything depended on the will of Avraham Avinu to whether he wants to do the will of God. Yesh, the buyer, we have to explain. Also, the test of going out of your father's house, your birthplace. Shakadosh Baruch Hu Amar, Hashem said, Lech lecha la'anascha u'latovascha. Go for your benefit and for your good. U'baruch hu b'birchas hatovos b'yoter. Pescha goy gadol v'avarecha v'agad l'shpecha. You shall be blessed. You'll be blessed with the good blessings. I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great. Avraham Avinu went through all these things. The only guiding principle in his life was that he wanted to do specifically what God wanted him to do. This is the main part of the test. Shekol brachos shuvtocholo lo nechshevu etzel klum lumas goyel chayos lasvutzoner isborach. He says all of the blessings that I've assured you would happen, they're not worth anything when compared to the great thing I'm asking you to take over for the Ratzon of Hashem. Hashem says that God and Avram walked as God spoke to him. This is an extra pasuk. We know the Torah doesn't have extra psukim. This is an extra pasuk that Avram did what Hashem wanted him. Shari Lahalan, pretty later on in the Parsha, Kasiv, it says, Vayikach Avram Esori Ishto Veslo Perachi Vagomer. So later in the Parsha that God took Lot and his wife Sarai to go to the land of Canaan. So if that's already said, he's showing his allegiance, so to speak. So why does it have to say it here? But this sentence says, Vayilach Avram kasher dibar elav Hashem. This sentence, Katu Amidaso b'Nisoyin. This tells us about his great ability to withstand the tests. These Sefer HaKodesh Shahalach Kasher Dibar Elav Hashem says that he was walking as God was speaking to him. He wasn't doing this because of the blessings that he would get and the promises. Aparuchios bioter, but only on spirituality, higher spirituality. Ki im mirtzono lasos ritzon kona, if it's by his own will, he's able to do the will of his creator. Bachshoy miskayim tzivuy Hashem, just as he's able to fulfill the will of God. So too, if he's walking in order to get the blessings and the promises. This is the greatness of one of these tests. Lahodia, to teach. Godol chavaso, to teach Godol chavaso shlo shat libo l'chol haschara Godol hamitzapalo. The great test was he wasn't concerned. He wasn't even thinking about the great reward that would be given to him. Kilo nechshav eslo l'uma kiyum ratzon ha'isfarach asher davar elav Hashem l'godol avaso l'Hashem yisparach. He wasn't at all interested. It meant nothing to him, and it did nothing to influence what he did by thinking about. Because of his love for God, he didn't need any other impetus. And this also was the great thing that came out of the test in Ur Kasdim when he was thrown into the furnace. Or Kasdim hay nisayon shamasiris nefesh shegufo shol nechshav eslo leklum ba'avoso es Hashem yisparach. The test there was that he was handing over his body, and basically, he didn't think his body was worth anything next to fulfilling the will of Hashem. But in the test of Lech Lecha, leaving his land, his father's house, then God promised him material benefits, material blessings. Madregos ruchnios, and also higher spiritual levels. Vavhein hayu taflus etzel lagabe avos Hashem. All these things were secondary to his love for God. Gudishokan el horatz asher record says, to the land that I will show you. Where did we see that Hashem showed him the land that they would be going towards? It only says, leave your land, your father's land, but doesn't say where you're going to go. And the Sforno explains, the land that I will show you, it's lomer horetz ba atra elecha b'malat elokim. He says that the land was visualized to Avram like like something God is showing him specifically. Shekan hoya elav adibur rak b'pchinas v'yom Hashem al Avram v'lo kativ v'yamar elav Hashem. It says only God talked to him. It doesn't say he appeared before him. When he said to him, "Shebemakom she'atra elecha b'maros elokim," the thing that you saw in your vision, Sham haaretz shalat haila. That's the land you will go to. V'zeba ma dichsiv lahalam v'yavor Avram be'eretz ad makom shechem ad alon mora. That's what it says. He walked to alon mora. Shoyer holech holach v'noso ad asher v'yar Hashem. He walked back and forth until God appeared to him. V'az v'yiven sham mizbeach l'Hashem hanir alav. Then it says he built an mizbeach, an altar to God who appeared before him. Shekivan Shabbat Mechutz Loretz Eretz Yisrael, Hisig Liros et Shem Yisborach B'darga Aliyah, I think it says, because coming from Chutz Loretz to Eretz Yisrael, he was able to see a level of God Yoter Gavoa, even higher. Va'af Klape Madrega Ruchniot Ilat Kuzah, even according to his spiritual levels, that also rose. Allah Avram Kasha Dibar, God, Avram walked according to what God told him. Sheinu Chafetz Lo Bagashmios Lo Baruchios Kasha Dibar Love Hashem. He didn't want material things or spiritual things. He just wants God to speak to him. This tells the love of Avraham Avinu before God. The greatness of his love, his clinging to God. And it says, as the Krivaner said, it's not a big deal that Avraham Avinu didn't burn up in the fire, the furnace of Ir Kasdim that he was thrown into. But the big deal is Shekev Sharo Eish Lo Nisraf, Bilado Eish Shel Ahavas Hashem, Shiyakti Bavraso Avraham Avinu. The amazing thing was that the furnace itself didn't burn up from the fiery connection of the love between Avram and God. This is the aspect of all the 10 tests that Avram Avinu withstood. It wasn't only tests in doing something. You do this and you'll get this. It wasn't just tests like that. Others could have done these physical tests. Pull a person off the street and say, take this test, you'll get this reward. Others could have done it. Avraham Avinu. The main aspect of this test was the great love that Avraham Avinu felt in his heart. It was that Hoisa Gedolasim, that was the greatness. I feel that science Ikar Hoya Godel Hachivivos Mitlavos Shashkia Vazeh. That was the greatest thing in the Ur Kazim, in the furnace, was the greatness of his love for God. Shabazeh Yilud Ish Yochel Agil Godel Valas Ravinu. With this, no human being could reach this level, this high level of Avraham Avinu. The other test, there was a hunger in the land, he had to leave and go down to Egypt. He had to withstand the test of Sarah being taken to the house of Paro, to the house of Avimelech. None of these things involved his own choice. He didn't choose that there should be a famine. He didn't choose that Sora should be taken by Paro and Avimelech. He didn't choose any of that. So what kind of a test is that? So that's what he's asking. He says the Ikra. No, he says the most important thing was his choice for Rak Shelo Hirur Achar Kadosh Baruch Hu. He didn't question God. That was the key. Ikarim lahodia chivaso. The main thing was his love for God. With that love for God, he couldn't question. Lo hiramuma. He couldn't think of anything else that he might need rather than what he has right now. He accepted everything with love. וכך כל עשור ניסיונות היה גבוה מעל גבוה, בדרגה שאף אחד בישראל לא היה יכול להגיע לזה, רק אברהם אבינו. The levels that he reached were so great that only he could reach that level. Shoma v'kulam l'godol chiboso. He was able to withstand all of them because of the greatness of his love for God. V'chein b'nisayon ha'akeda. Also the test of the Akedah, because of just the general aspect of it, he says many Jews could have accomplished that. But who would be able to meet him with the fiery intent and the holy fire by which he made the Akedah? Adas Dorshas Chazal, as Chazal have explained, no matter what materiality things Avram had and was trying to he was trying to withstand the pull of the material things. Nonetheless, ahava mevateles shoresh shel gedola. Love for God made everything else null and void. Abraham wanted to do mitzvahs very much. He did the mitzvah with joy. Parsha Lech Lecha. He didn't have to wait. He didn't have to wait to have a discussion with God as to if this is what he really wants. He immediately took off as God had said, and that's the key. When you want to do the will of God, don't procrastinate. And the Gemara says, don't delay, because if you delay and you think I could do it another time, that time may never come. So when you have the opportunity to fulfill the Ratzon of Hashem, do it now. Every Jew has an aspect of these 10 tests. And the most important thing is the qualities that are connected to them. It's not enough to just withstand the test in its actuality. But how much did you stand in this test because of the greatness of your love for God? And the general principle that these mitzvahs that we do are to get you closer to God, to cleave to God. That all of the mitzvahs, all the high mitzvahs, are to bring a Jew to have closeness with God. Shizehu this is the job for which the Jew was sent into this world. Can be that a Jew spends all day long studying Torah and praying and doing good deeds. And the general principle that his cleaving to God was the main point. But he didn't come to that level. He went. We often go through the material. We go through the physical acts of trying to get close to God, but we're not really close to God to show our love to God. But through these tests, he increased himself in ruchnius. Midrash says al possible keep nisos Avram. Hashem nasata levriachad neisle noses. Hashem gives a flagpole, to show as a symbol how far a Jew can go in serving God. Nisoyin after nisoyin, gidolin after gidolin. Tests after each test, great tests after great tests. B'shvil yisoson l'gadol ba'olam kanes hazeh shel sfina. It's represents the mast of a boat. And when you raise the mast high, shows you're not afraid of anything. You're sticking by who you are. And the same thing, these tests become like a mast to identify the greatness of Abraham. God recognizes what a Jew does, and he'll recognize whether he can withstand this test. But the test is only to make us great. So the test itself makes him great. All the tests that a Jew does, they're very difficult. But he can go higher and higher than before. Because he's able to pass through this test. He's able to go higher and higher through these tests. And I'm going to skip to the end of this. Kind of sums it up. Second. If you have love for God, that's everything. If you don't have love for God, you have nothing. He says, Yesod ha'avoda b'pirkei tshuva. In the sentence, the paragraph on tshuva, it says, one moment of repenting through love, is much more acceptable to God than 100 fasts. One moment of tshuva out of love. Hashem, when a Jew comes to the level of God, the intentional averos that he did become like mitzvos, their merits. And this level you can't reach with 100 fasts. Midas hachavios hu yesod kol haTorah. The quality of loving God is the foundational rock of the Torah. And I think that's to sum it up, as we said at the beginning, the way to approach God, to do something not because it makes sense, not because it might be beneficial, maybe it'll be good for you, but because you know that it is the Ratzon of Hashem, it's the will of God, and through your love for God, that will endeavor you to do the mitzvah. So may we all be zocha May all be zocha to approach our performance of mitzvahs with love and not as an obligation. Thank you for listening, and I'm going to turn off the recording.